Boom! There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, let me ask you guys, are you looking for IT management? Maybe a CTO of sorts? Well, look, if you're looking for that kind of tech support, then this episode's for you. Let's get this one started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life. Prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Buzz!
Are you a business owner or executive seeking to optimize your technology infrastructure and unleash its full potential? Today, we have the privilege of hosting a true expert in the field. With a distinguished background in information systems security and over 4 decades of experience in IT management, he has a proven track record of creating and managing effective IT solutions for businesses of all sizes. In this episode, he's going to share his valuable insight on how to harness the power of technology to drive productivity, security, and growth. Whether you're struggling with network performance, data security, or the complexities of the cloud, he has the knowledge and expertise to guide you towards the optimal solutions. Get ready to transform your technology operations and gain the competitive advantage in this digital landscape. So let's welcome to the show, Mr. Kyle Wentworth. And the party can begin. Kyle, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Hernan. Thanks for having me on.
I'm excited to have you on the show. Big shout out to Dr. Rob who got us hooked up here. So thanks, Dr. Rob, for having a referral for us. And well, Kyle, let's get into this, man. 4 decades of doing this stuff. Man. I remember my very first business was computer repair in the early 2000s. You've been at this for quite some time. How'd you get into space, and what have you seen happen in those 4 decades?
Oh, good grief. I got into this space when I was a kid, a really young kid. Had a really good mentor. My baseball coach owned a Radio Shack, and he got me into tearing circuit boards apart and really got me involved in electronics, and it just blossomed from there. Did it through high school and on into the business world before the military. I was information systems security officer in the Army for 9 years. Worked at Los Alamos for 3 years, doing some crazy stuff there, inventing some new technologies. And then ran a managed services company for 10 years while I was in the military, and then also 20 years after that, and sold that company in 2019.
Isn't it crazy how much time has gone by and where technology is today? Like, I have
it's crazy. We're still hearing dial tones in my head. It's, and it's gone so fast.
Oh man, my kids have this like small stock portfolio. One of the stocks that I bought from early on was Nvidia, and that thing's blown up, by the way, lately.
In the last couple of weeks, extremely, because of the whole AI chipset.
Right?
And that's a real big deal.
It's a real big deal, and it's amazing. But let's bring this back to businesses that want to work with you, right? So you have all this experience in the technology space, working on your own businesses, working in the military, on the tech space. You've seen a wide variety of things. When businesses start thinking about their IT in their businesses, what are some of those challenges that you often see them encounter that they may not quite know about, but they need to be aware of?
Well, the very first thing is executives have a focus. I like Mike Michalowicz. I love reading his books. The Pumpkin Plan is one of my primary favorites. And the target of that book is growing the biggest pumpkin. And if you're feeding the little pumpkins along the way, you're distracted along the way. So when a business executive is trying to grow the biggest pumpkin, their business, trying to grow the largest business, largest aspect of their business, the hardest part is when they have to get distracted into a language set that they don't understand. That's technology. Very few people stay on top of technology as fast as it's changing, with all of the the security compliance standards and governance standards that are changing constantly all the time. It's impossible for executives to be distracted long enough to stay on top of this. You can't feed two masters. You can't serve two masters. And so you have to either run your business or you have to run your technology, because if you're doing both, you're having a struggle with growing your business well. And that's the whole reason for a CTO in your business. You need to have somebody who speaks the language of technology in your business.
There's only 24 hours in a day. So how is it that Oprah conquers her 24 hours and we don't? And I think it comes back to what you're talking about with the pumpkin plan, right? He also has a toilet paper entrepreneur, which is also a great book. His stuff, the way he introduces, I feel like he's like in my head thinking about the entrepreneurship. So it's great reads, by the way. But okay, so we want to make sure that we're focusing our attention on what we're good at, and then outsourcing or having somebody on the team who can focus the attention on what they're good at. And I know businesses want to have a technology infrastructure that's aligned with their goals, but how can they do that effectively in their operations, especially when they don't know, but when they want to bring someone on like yourself?
Well, starting with a good mission statement, a good vision statement of where the company is going, and a really good understanding of their business process model. When a company understands who their business process is, who their customer is, who their target is, they can reverse engineer that into operational tasks and functions that drive into the intellectual property of the business into a technology process. Having somebody who can understand the technology process and how to incorporate business in conjunction with technology is the key asset for their business. Every business, regardless of the size of their business, should start with a technology executive, a technology professional as an advisor to their business, as well as a business process modeler, so that they can understand and document intellectual property knowledge onto paper. And that is, I mean, the number one loss in a business is when an employee leaves who had all the keys to the kingdom in their brain when they left. You have to re-engineer all of that information. If you had it documented before they left, then somebody else could perform those tasks. The benefit of WCG is we perform both business process modeling and chief technology officer roles for a business.
Let's break that down a little bit. I mean, essentially, you're talking about the IT management role, which could be a CTO, CIO, CISO type services, all kinds of different categories in this tech space. But I feel like the average entrepreneur often doesn't understand what those roles really are and what they do. For the most part, when I talk to entrepreneurs and we talk technology, they think email, they think website, and anything that has to do with a keyboard, security wise, to make sure they don't get hacked. But I feel like there's more to what you're able to provide. So what are some of those things that IT management brings to the table for entrepreneurs?
Well, like you were talking about, there's three different roles of the technology management team. The CTO is responsible for the futures of technology, essentially the business plan, the focus on what's happening next, the preparation for the goals of the business as the company is moving forward. That's the responsibility of the CTO. The CIO is responsible for everything that's currently in function and operation, the things that people are using, the network, the hardware in the network, the software that's being used, where data is stored, how it's backed up. That's the CIO's role. And then the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, is responsible for everything security. The security of logins and keeping viruses off the network and keeping ransomware out of the network, as well as physical security, who has access to the building, who has access to technology, who has access to the network room, where is your data stored, how is it secured? If you have data in the cloud, securing that data in the cloud, that's a mess. And most companies, when they go to the cloud, they don't think of the security aspect of the cloud. It's not as secure as people think. So you really need to have a good CISO on your team to make that happen. And we have all of that inside of what we do. So when you're thinking of how do I plan technology in my business and what are the next steps, if you're thinking, what are my next steps in my business, that dialogue should be happening with a CTO advisor.
And technology has been changing rapidly. I mean, you're talking about cloud technology, and I remember starting my first business. Like a hard drive was like 256 megabytes, and that was a big hard drive at the time when I was in this space. So today, you're talking about terabytes of data that's just floating in this cloud, it's one login access, and we don't really think about it. We think Dropbox or Google Drive, that's the security that we need. We're good to go. But you're talking about more than just that. You're talking about being able to secure this stuff, having people to have access. You're talking about things like key fobs, even technology to open doors and things like that. That's kind of a lot to put into an entrepreneur's plate. When you sit down with entrepreneurs of all sizes, how do they know where to prioritize?
At the end of the day, it's not their job. This is the whole concept of the pumpkin plan. The job of the entrepreneur is to grow their business. It's not to make technology decisions. If you hired a CFO for your company and they came on board as a W-2 employee, their responsibility is managing the finances of the business as the company moves forward. But is that CFO the CPA? No, most commonly companies don't hire a CPA internally if they're less than 1,000 employees, even if they're 2,500 employees. They're most commonly using an outsourced company to do CPA work. So the cost of bringing the brain power of the CTO, the CIO, CISO into your business, that's $500,000 or more per year. And you just can't afford that kind of knowledge, nor can you afford the schooling to obtain that knowledge on your own. So if you're thinking about what am I doing next in my technology arena, what you should be thinking about is what is the next vertical or the next function, the next operation, big picture that my business wants to take on. And as the entrepreneur, you surround yourself with smarter people than you in order to conduct those tasks. If you're thinking that you're going to wear all the hats in your business, you're not going to be feeding the biggest pumpkin. You're only going to be feeding all the little pumpkins all along the vine, and they're stealing away your time and your energy and your resources. You really need to allow people who have the capability and knowledge and capacity to handle those decisions and discussions and budgets and projections for you and move your company forward in a logical and streamlined way that meets along the lines of your mission and your vision statement. That's what you need to have. You need to issue out the ideas and let other people manage that in the capacity that you need to have them. A CTO, once they get started in your business, they work about 20 to 25% of the time full-time. So they're paid full-time if they're in your business full-time, but they're only working about 20 to 25% because IT pretty much runs itself with some support people taking care of updates and patches and implementations and additions and deletions. And that's what the IT support staff is for. That's what your managed service provider is for. But your managed service provider is a for-profit company. They can't be your advisor on the new things you want to do in technology because they're trying to feed their own biggest pumpkin. So you need somebody on your side that can actually manage that relationship, do it in an agnostic kind of way related to your business being their focus instead of the profit of the product being their focus, which is the MSP's goal. I mean, granted, those companies want to help you and they want to make things better for your business. They want to manage it for your business, but they have a for-profit need. They're trying to grow a big pumpkin too.
So what's that process like then? Because I'd imagine there's got to be a learning curve here when you're bringing on a CTO, especially if it's a fractional part-time or you're bringing somebody on full-time. If people are going to work with you, for example, when you come on board, what's it like to understand the way things operate in the business so that as a CTO, you can make technological decisions that are in line with that vision and that mission statement?
So I hate saying the statement, IT is IT is IT is IT. There's probably a 90% comparable IT platform standard for the majority of the companies on the market. You have productivity software, you have security software, you have storage solutions, you have backup and redundancy solutions, you have power management solutions. And then you have business intelligence products like your ERP package. There's commonalities for every technology environment. And then there's the dissimilarities. And so that's where experience and expertise, and then also subject matter experts in those areas come into play. So you have to do an evaluation and assessment and onboarding process, which we do. We spend about 3 times more time in the onboarding process than we do in continuing support of our clients. So when we onboard clients in the first 3 to 4 months, we're doing a lot of hands-on work, talking to employees, finding the things that they're not comfortable with, that aren't working well, that aren't productive solutions, that are redundant solutions. We're doing all of that investigative work up front to figure out who the company currently is. And then we're speaking to executives in the business to identify who they want the company to be and drawing the lines in between and figuring out the best approach according to budget. Not every project has to be done today. Some projects can be done over the next 3 or 4 quarters or 2 years of a business's budget line, but some things must be done now. So having somebody who understands the delineation between what is required today and what can happen, what can wait, that's an important person to have in your asset list. The IT company is going to bring you a proposal and it could be $100,000 worth of upgrades. So you're going to fork that over right now. Maybe you need to, maybe you don't. Maybe you only need 10 grand of it. Maybe you need 20 grand of it right up front. So all of those decisions need to be made by somebody who understands how to speak the language of the technology company and who understands your internal infrastructure.
I always feel like a story always shares the examples a little bit better than the hypotheticals. So granted, I love the explanation, but do you have an example, like a case study of a company that you've worked with, to kind of walk us through that scenario so we can see how you're able to help them achieve their IT goals?
So perfect example. We had a client with 6 locations. I think there was that when they started off, there were 6 locations. They moved to 8 locations. And one of the first things that we do when we come into a company is we start the business process model evaluation. So how are people functioning in their business? Because the way the business process model works, if you don't have documentation for everything that somebody does in their business, there needs to be a notepad on the desk where people are writing down the steps that they're taking to get things done. That way, if somebody needs to take vacation time for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks for whatever reason, somebody else can sit in their desk and actually take care of the tasks. They may not be great at it, but they can at least take care of the tasks. During that process, we're looking for inefficiencies or mistakes in how technology is being used or how business operations are functioning, to look for anomalies or the good things and the bad things. And in one case, we found a client within the first 15 minutes of coming into the company, we found that the client was in their finance software was processing use tax incorrectly. That was a huge mistake because they had been doing it incorrectly for 20 years and it had never been caught.
Oh,
so the state that they were in only allowed them to go back so many years and recuperate or essentially get a refund for that misappropriated use tax. But it was like $300,000 that they got back in misappropriated use tax. It was a big deal. That comes out in technology audits. It sometimes needs to have a CFO in there. When you find that they're doing something wrong in that process, that's when the professional needs to be brought in to do the evaluation. And so we have all the resources of people in our Rolodex, if you will, in our contacts lists of experts in different fields to come in when the area is not technology. So we bring in resources when those things need to happen. And a good CFO came in and found the mistakes in that process. They brought in a CPA, and we did some additional research. There was a whole bunch of mistakes we figured out in the process. So yeah, it can be a lengthy process, but that's what we're here for.
Yeah, but you're able to
straight and take over all those distractions from you making your business the biggest pumpkin.
But I mean, think about that. You literally helped them recoup 300 grand, not to mention the money that they would have been giving up going forward. Had they been able to catch that even earlier, that would have been a ton more savings. It's funny how those tax authorities work, right? When you owe them, they are on you. But when they owe you, they'll take your time and don't worry, you can only get back refunds for a couple years.
Yeah, and they would have never known that, and the state would have never known that. I mean, you're reporting the details. They don't know. I mean, it's hard to know. Somebody has to understand that the mistake is made, and then regurgitate the information to produce the reports and file the paperwork. And I mean, that's not us in that case, but we found the problem, and we found the problem during our auditing process. So it is a big deal.
Definitely a big deal that needed to be fixed. Let's talk about some key considerations that businesses might come in contact when it comes to network optimization. We talked a little bit about the cloud, but we're living in a much more mobile world these days where people aren't showing up to the office. It's not a closed network like we've had in the past. We're literally transmitting across the globe. People could be sitting in Guam right now working in San Diego time, and going face-to-face via Zoom and things like that, sharing all kinds of things. There's got to be vulnerabilities that people aren't quite aware of. How are you helping them kind of get these network things optimized so that they're ensuring they have a smooth operation when they're finally implementing their business practices?
So once again, the business owner focuses on the pumpkin, and they trust us to help them manage the technology partners who are implementing solutions that must be installed. So we have a serious problem with this whole work remotely situation. People are taking laptops, potentially desktops, home from work, plugging them into their home networks that's got their Alexa and their Roku and their Ring doorbell. Ring just got hacked just a month ago, I think. They're bringing these laptops into networks where everything is flat. What that means is all the devices can see all the other devices that are plugged into the network. There's no isolation or segmentation of devices on the network. So if Susie's little son has a virus on his machine, or has ransomware on his machine, or there's a backdoor running on any device, any IoT device that's in the network, that work computer that's plugged into the network is now susceptible to being penetrated by that vulnerability. So, and by that attack. It's a dangerous world when the network guys and girls are not at the employee's house solving the problems of the internal network. So that computer, before it goes home, it needs tools and resources and assets installed on it that are managed and monitored, that are protected the way that the business should be protected before it ever plugs into any other network. I mean, if you have salespeople, they're on the road all the time. They're connecting into public Wi-Fi solutions that are open all over the place. I've got a little device, I won't mention its name, costs $99. With a little bit of programming, all the instructions are online. I can be sitting at a coffee shop with that little device sitting in my backpack. It's all battery powered, doesn't have to plug into the wall anywhere. And I can start scavenging people's usernames and passwords with that device. It's really, really simple to set up and use. What do you have on your business laptops and business mobile devices, on your cell phones, that's preventing those devices from monitoring and stealing your Office 365 login? It doesn't matter whether you have a big domain network at your office, but if you're using Gmail or Office 365 or any other cloud-based email solution, I mean, realistically, any solution, when you log into that computer and you connect it to a public Wi-Fi and there isn't protection on that machine, anybody with this little device can be monitoring and snooping your password information.
Let me
So
ask you
you've got to have
about
something that can protect it.
let me ask you about that data security, because it's definitely a big issue today. You hear it all the time. Norton sends me emails about, Target had a break in security, and Dropbox had a break in security, and everybody has these security hacks that happen. Why is it so crucial for people to have this data security? What's the business possibility at risk? Like, what can happen to a business if their information gets leaked like that?
Well, the cost of recovery is incredible. So, $25,000 ransom. It was simple, just $25,000. Of course, it was in Bitcoin, but they wanted $25,000 in ransom in order to recover a company's files. Okay. No big deal for Amazon or Target.
Right.
Doctor's office, 25 grand's probably, a full quarter's worth of in total gross revenue. Might be even 6 months for a small dental practice.
Yeah.
It'll put your company right out of business. And if you get caught with ransomware, realistically, if you have a good IT company in place, you don't pay any ransom. As a matter of fact, the government's pushing to fine you if you pay a ransom.
Wow.
So if you don't pay the ransom, how are you going to get your data back? If you have a good IT company, they reset, go back to yesterday's backup, or maybe even a backup from 6 or 8 hours ago. Some of the problem is that ransomware has been on your machine for 18 months, 7 months, 4 months. And it's just been sitting there waiting to find the time when it wants to activate itself. A lot of them just sit there dormant. So you have to have solutions in place that are monitoring all of those tasks. You have to have a firewall in place that knows how to monitor different types of traffic that it finds as malicious traffic, as traffic is passing through the network. Like, keep the conversation extremely not overly technical, but some of this stuff is extremely technical. And the dialogue we can have about it can be easy and informative and understandable. But you put those security guys in the room, and it's like walking into a room when people are speaking an Asian language and you've never heard the language before.
Yeah.
You think they're speaking English, but it's a completely different language. Imagine being a small business owner, not having Target's budget, not having Dropbox's budget to fix the problem. Look how much money those companies have already spent on security solutions to try to protect their networks.
It is scary.
It's scary. The small business doesn't have that kind of money to put towards a security solution. They need their budget, but they need the same level of security solutions. And we make sure that the managed service providers who are providing that information not only are putting in the right product, but we're also capable of auditing that they did the job correctly. How many small business owners hire an IT service provider and then hire an auditor who's an external company to make sure the IT service provider put the product in correctly?
Rarely. That doesn't ever happen. It
doesn't ever happen because they trust their managed service provider. Well, I can probably walk into 98%. I only say 98 because it's probably 99. 98% of the businesses who have a managed service provider out doing their work and find mistakes in the configs or firewalls that a UTM firewall, a next generation firewall that has all the bells and whistles in it that you need to protect your network, where the project said that they were going to do A, B, C, D, and E, and they only got A, B, and D done because there just wasn't enough time in the project to complete it all. But they'll get back to it or not.
It's crazy. It sounds like if we don't get this stuff squared away, we're literally sitting on a ticking time bomb. Something could already be sitting on our computers, on our networks, just waiting to hack our stuff and then hold us ransom. And I definitely, as a business owner, a small business owner, I don't want to be able to have to struggle with that. Kyle, if people want to reach out to you, if they are worried about their own security issues, they're like, okay, it's about time I get a CTO on board on my team. How could they do that?
There's several ways to get to the end point of reaching out. Wentworthconsultinggroup.com. That's the place to go. Almost every page has a contact us, get more information, fill out the form, and it sends us an email and somebody will get back with you. That's the easiest way to do it. Telephone numbers. I mean, I think the telephone number might be published in this in this video, but 254-265-6132. I'll give you that. But WentworthConsultingGroup.com will give you all the information.
Kyle, thank you very much for coming on the show today. Ladies and gentlemen, look, IT is a real thing. You're literally online all the time, and you're not really thinking about the consequences of what could happen if you hear it on the news, you see it happen all the time, and you think that won't happen to me until it does. So make sure you guys take advantage of this situation that you have right here. You literally have Kyle in here sharing with you all kinds of different things that you can need to be aware of, that you can do to help protect yourself. Go to WentworthConsultingGroup.com, WentworthConsultingGroup.com. Schedule a time to talk and see where you are today and get the information from a professional so you can stop feeding these little other pumpkins on your vine and just focus your attention on growing that big pumpkin, which is your business. That's what you wanted to get into in the first place. Let professionals help you on the side, especially when it comes to things that they're experts at, like this IT stuff. WentworthConsultingGroup.com, WentworthConsultingGroup.com. Kyle, thank you very much for being on the show today. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.
Turn on, you're the boss.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you. Have a good one.
We'll chat soon.
We're out.
It's over. Go home. Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast. But not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz